Hello and welcome to another Treehouse tutorial, and today we're looking at column subtraction through decomposition, and this will be mainly for children in year 3 and 4. But first up, I want to have a big shout out to any parents that are watching because we are going to take ourselves back to our kind of childhood days, and I'm thinking back to the 90s in particular, a time when Manchester City, for example, were in the depths of League One or the equivalent back then, a time when the Venga Boys were popular and banging loads of tunes out, and then also a time when basically tweeting, as you can hear in the garden at the moment, was only really a thing that birds did. Okay, but what we're doing is we're looking at a method that will go back to that kind of time. Okay, lots of the methods these days are different to what I was taught at school, for example, and I know that a lot of parents comment on this to me regularly, that they are struggling to keep up with the kinds of methods that we do. Well, this one hopefully is a one, folks, parents, that you recognise. Okay, I'm going to show the method first. We're going to do this in reverse a bit today, because here we would hopefully, if you were taught the same way as I was all those years ago, I'm pretty old now, you would look at this and you would say, well, 5 take away 9, I can't do that. And then this is probably the language that we probably used in our time. We'll cross the 8 off and we'll make it into a 7 and we'll add a 1 there. And then we'll say 15 take away 9 is 6 and we'll go from there. Okay, but I just want to pause there and I want us to take a little step backwards. I want us to rewind here. So as we rewind, I want us to think about our place value and our actual understanding of what we're doing here. Okay, because this is probably a familiar method to many of us of different ages, but actually what does it mean? So when we've got 285, this number can be partitioned, and that's a number that your children should be familiar with, those parents who are watching, should be partitioned into, can be partitioned into different ways. The main way that this would be partitioned into is looking simply at its different columns. So the 2 representing 200. So it's saying 285 equals 200, add 80, add 5. Okay, that's the simplest way for us to partition that number. However, we can partition this number in loads of different ways. And there's one way that I'm going to show you now that's going to become relevant to all of this. So for example, we could maintain the 200, we'll see why in a moment. 200 add 70, add 15. I want you to hold that thought as we go into this method. So before we go to the what I would call the compact column subtraction method, I want to show the kind of expanded version. So the expanded version looks something like this, a little bit like what we've just been doing. So we show that they've got the 200, we've got the 80, and then we've got the 5. Okay, a little bit wonky on my board as usual, but we'll cope with it. So underneath we've got our 50 and we've got our 9. Okay, 50 and 9, and what we're saying is we're going to subtract here. So this is mirroring this method very much so, but it's expanding it out a little bit for our place value understanding. So we have this idea of 5 take away 9 is not possible. Okay, so many people will put 4 there and will consider reversing the digits, putting the 9 at the top. We can't do that with subtraction, unfortunately. But what we can do is we can say, well, we need to come along to this column here. Okay, now if I had a resource, which I haven't got because it's in school at the moment, but a resource called base 10, that would be brilliant for showing this using concrete resources. So if you can get a hold of any of that, brilliant. You can kind of print them off online as well. But this would be really good to show how we need to, what we call, exchange a 10 across from this column into the ones. Okay, so we would exchange a 10 and then we're going to place that across on there. So rather than just saying, well, we're going to cross off the 8 and put a 1 over there, well, what we're actually doing is we're exchanging 10 from here so that this is actually becoming 70, and then we're placing that 10 in the ones column, meaning that really we've got 15 ones in here. Okay, and hopefully this is starting to help you to understand the method a bit more, because then we've got our 15 subtract 9, which is 6, and we've then got 70 subtract 50, which is 20. Okay, and then we've got 200 subtract nothing here. Okay, any gap that you ever see in maths, you can fill that with something called a placeholder, which is 0. 200 take away 0 is 200. So I'm predicting that my answer here is going to be, when we add these together, 226. So let's do it the way that we did back in the 90s, and I'm sure in other decades as well. We've got our 15 subtract 9 here. which is our 6. We've then got what we would perhaps just call 7/8/5, but we know that what it really means is 70 subtract 50, okay, and that gives us our 2, or effectively our 20, and then again, to take away nothing there, we can use our placeholder if we would like, so we've got 200, yes, we've got 226. So I hope that's been useful in us kind of looking at this method, but also rewinding and taking that step back to understand what we're doing, because that'll really help us as we move forward into things like decimal subtraction. We've enjoyed it.